It is such a blessing to have you here, Mr. Lewis. This moment truly means a lot to me personally, and I know it will mean a lot to our listeners too. So, without further ado, let's dive into Faith in the Lead. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Divine Story Hour. I'm your host, Candis Dorsey. Today, we begin our Faith in the Lead series, celebrating leaders guided by purpose and driven by faith. I'm honored to introduce our guest, Mr. Mark Lewis, beginning with his most valuable titles: a husband and father, a native of Pittsburgh, graduated from Michigan State University in accounting, and former auditor and risk manager at Price Waterhouse and Ernst& Young. In 2002, he became the second president and CEO of the Poise Foundation, continuing a legacy of philanthropic work dating back to the 1980s and leading a mission to strengthen Black communities through grant making, scholarships, and advocacy. Mark is an elder and trustee at Deliverance Baptist Church, active in the teaching ministry, and serves on numerous boards, including Habitat for Humanity, the African Americans Funders Group, and the Sankofa Fund. He is also, because there's more, the 2024 recipient of the prestigious award, James A. Joseph Lecturer Award from ABFE for Excellence in Philanthropic Leadership. Mark, I'm deeply grateful you're here. Let's start with you. I know that was a lot, but you have done a lot and well deserved.
No,
So
thank you.
tell us
Glad to be
about
here.
your welcome. So tell us about your current role and mission at the Poise Foundation.
Sure. So Poise Foundation, as you mentioned, has been around since 1980. It's created as the first Black community foundation in the country. Really with the idea of how do we create community wealth and long-term community wealth through endowments and then invest, monies coming from those endowments back into the Black community. We started out as really focused in the Pittsburgh area, but have grown where we have donors from across the country who have created funds, and those grants and scholarships go pretty much anywhere in the country. And so we're, on a huge mission right now to significantly grow the foundation so that we can have a greater impact, not only in the Pittsburgh region, but across the country, and really get our people to understand that we collectively can build resources and reinvest back into our community.
Wow. So, if you may, can you share how you stepped into the leadership role and whether there was a defining moment where you felt that God was calling you into a higher capacity?
Sure. So, yeah, I mean, how I came to Poise Foundation, I often say was divine intervention. So, um, I was working, as you mentioned, at Ernst& Young at the time, and the founder of the Poise Foundation was my lifelong mentor. And so he knew me since basically he said he held me in his arms when I was a baby because his wife and my mother grew up together, so the families were pretty close. But around 2001, he actually suffered a stroke. And at that time, we realized that, he was going to be incapacitated, and he ended up passing away a few months later. And I was at a point in my career where I was actually looking at a partnership, opportunity in the accounting firm. But when he passed away, just the passion and everything he instilled in me about our community and about the foundation, I took a leap of faith and left the accounting profession and took over the foundation, which I had mentioned in a speech prior, but a lot of people didn't realize where faith comes into play is it was, taking a leap and probably cutting my salary in half. And with a family and three young children, faith played a huge role in that decision.
Wow, that was powerful. Um, I gotta ask then, was there any moment early in that journey when you may have doubted yourself, like in
Um,
regards to that choice?
Yeah, so what was interesting is I was involved with the foundation. So that was 2002 when I, you know, made that transition. I had been involved with the foundation since around 1991 in different ways and was on the board of the foundation. So, and then growing up with Bernie Jones, who was the founder. Um, Through that period of time, really understood the importance of the foundation and, you know, understanding why poise is important and again, where we were as a family and, my whole family relies on faith heavily. Um, I don't think there was any doubt. Obviously, moving into a different venture, Bernie Jones was a single employee. When I took over the foundation, I was a single employee. So there was a lot to do and a lot to learn. I think there's always, whenever you make a change, whatever that change is, there's that, fear factor of the unknown, right, that pops up. And I think that's where you have to rely on your faith as the counter to that fear. And so, yeah, there's always the, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what the journey is going to bring. But again, that's where, you have to fall back on your faith.
Uh, I absolutely agree 100%. So it sounds like God was working even when you didn't realize it. So
Absolutely.
would you say that that season taught you something foundational that you still hold on to tight today?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think what we don't understand and don't realize until you're able to look back, right, over your journey are the things that God is putting in place, right? The things that He's teaching you. The fact that I had an accounting background coming into this foundation was huge. The fact that, the when the creators of the foundation created the foundation, uh, they were not investment minded. They were still dealing just with commercial papers, CDs, and things like that, trying to grow a foundation. And so the experience around investing, working with large corporations, working with large, pretty high level executives, all of those things kind of built into the journey, as well as just my family watching. My family's always been philanthropic, giving back in many ways, and so to have that experience and to take those building blocks were huge stepping stones to prepare me for the job itself and the ability to step into the foundation. So, I don't necessarily point at any time to any one thing that I think are foundational. I think it's just the series and it's the journey itself. And again, when we look back on life, we can say, okay, yeah, God placed me here, God placed me there. But as you're walking through it, you're just walking through it. You don't necessarily know that these are the necessary steps to get you to where, you will be.
Wow. That, yes, I agree with that as well. And I was just sitting here thinking about it as you were speaking. You went from a company that was based around money to a organization to where that was not what it was based around. It was based around being there for the community, building the community, nonprofit. I mean, the exact opposite of that. So I could just imagine and making that decision and having a family and making those transitions of how it would take an amount of faith, and trust in God to say, I'm going to do this. I want you to lead me. I want to allow you to lead me as I'm moving forward. And so, with that being said, as CEO, how would you say that God's principles inform your daily decision making?
Yeah, I mean, I think especially if regardless of what the organization is, I think one, integrity is huge, right? And integrity and accountability. And for me, it's really looking at, what is that moral compass above ourselves? We can always figure out a way to justify something we're doing, whether it's good or bad. But, what is that standard and what is that measure? And so, first of all, always understanding that there is a higher power that I am trying to be accountable to that has already set the standard and how I'm measuring myself against that standard. Um, all of us are going to fall short in various ways, but I think what's critical is that we don't come up with our own standard. We don't lower the standard that is set. And so having that integrity to understand that what I do on a daily basis, even you'll hear often people say, what you do when people aren't looking is what's important. I think the key there is if you know that there is always somebody looking, right? And you're trying to make sure that you're meeting that standard is critical. And so that's one of the, key, I think, attributes of being in leadership. Faith is often there. Leaders have to make decisions where you don't know the outcome. And so, whether that's faith, trusting faith in your abilities, trusting faith that, God is going to lead you in the right place. I think faith plays a huge role in, decision making. And so those are critical. I think the other piece, especially in this position as a foundation and because of what we do and what we stand for in our community, is that attribute of servant, right? A servant leader, and sacrificing and making sure that you're thinking community minded, not just about yourself, not just about the organization, but how is this a vehicle, right, for us to serve the community and to help our people first, but to help people in general.
Wow. I'm trying not to. I was crying. I said I wasn't. I love that. I think a lot of young people think leadership has to look loud or authoritative, but what you're describing is deeply rooted in humility. Um, the integrity that a leader has and brings so much to any company, organization, or business, and being able to foster an inclusive leadership style. And so I want to take a moment to speak about the kind of legacy leadership we don't talk about enough, not just the impact, but the integrity.
Mhm.
What has that looked like in your hardest seasons?
Yeah, I mean it's tough. I mean, we have gone through several seasons at the foundation in just life where you don't know what's right around the corner, right? We've had some fundraising issues and difficulties over time and had to make some tough decisions. Uh, there have been times where we've had to make decisions on people's lives. Do we have to lay somebody off or whatever? And those are never easy decisions. I think, and I think, you mentioned the humility piece. I think that's extremely important in today's world where we do have social media, we have everybody liking, looking for likes, looking for friends. Neither one of those are really real half the time. And so we have this, we're in this movement of how do I lift myself up, right? But if you're running an organization, if you're focused on lifting yourself up, then the organization most likely is going to go down. And so there's this level of, both sacrifice, this level of understanding that what you do, the decisions you're making, the people that are looking at you, you have to be at, again, a certain standard because you're dealing with an organization. It's not just about you, not just about your family. You have now assumed a responsibility, and if you're in that position, you've accepted a responsibility, right, to care for others, to care about the organization, the community, and all these things. And so that weighs heavy, right? But again, humility, sacrifice, integrity, I think those are key things that if you're looking to move into that position, especially as a young leader, those are things you need to keep, at the forefront of your mind. Recognition, awards, and all of that will come based on what you do on a daily basis, around those other three areas.
To everything that you just said, I'm going to say something. I want you to tell me what it means to you from that. A servant leader.
Right. And so I think for me, the key there is not so much what you do, but it's the mindset. And so we have too many leaders that, change that word around, right? And so leaders look to be served. And, I'm the CEO or I'm in this position. So, you know, get me the seat up front or serve me in some way. And I think if you're truly effective, you turn that around, right? The example in the Bible is when Jesus washed the feet of the disciples, right? He was trying to show them that, yes, and they knew, and he knew I'm above you, right? As far as who I am and where I stand, but that does not mean that I cannot come down and serve you, right? Because that is what a true leader is to do. And so we've got to be careful, especially if you're out there and people are lifting you up in different ways. Again, to be humble. And for me, like I said at the beginning, using that standard. So I don't care what awards or whatever you give me, I can look up and say, yeah, I'm still not there, right? So that keeps me at a place where I need to be in understanding the mission, right, is also, I think, critical of whatever you're doing, whether it's for profit or nonprofit, staying true to that mission. And if you are, then it's not necessarily about you and your position. It's about what are we doing to accomplish, what we set out to do and how are we serving the community in doing that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we're going to dive into a little wisdom for emerging leaders in today's environment of hustle culture and so many people feeling overwhelmed right now. How can someone remain spiritually grounded while pursuing excellence? And would you say purpose and faith helped you find clarity when things felt uncertain? With
Uh, yeah, absolutely. To the last part, I think one of the things that is so prevalent today is technology. So what technology has done is it's created a world where we never turn off, right? We never have to turn off because there's always something, we have access to something. And I think in some respects that's great. If we're searching for information or need information, we don't have to wait for certain things to happen to grab that information. At the same time, as you talk about the hustle culture, I think it's critical to understand that one, even when you're young, make sure you're taking time for yourself. Everybody talks about the self-care piece. It's easy to burn out. It's easy to work 20 hours a day if you wanted to, right? The reality is, especially even for entrepreneurs, and yes, you do have to work harder, especially when you're starting something out. The reality is if you disappear, right, the world goes on. And whatever you're doing, whether it's your organization or somebody's another organization, someone will fill that gap, right? And that's not to say that, you're not important or what you're doing is not important, but just put in the context that, yes, it is important. And yes, you should focus and yes, you should work hard, but balance that as well. Because if you're not here, right, work so hard, you have a heart attack or you're stressed out or whatever, the world's going to go on. And sometimes, especially in leadership, we think that, if it's not for us, this is not going to continue. And that's not the case. And Poise Foundation is a great example. I can't replace Bernie Jones, an amazing man. But the fact that he did pass away and untimely, right? I was able to step in and take it forward. And, that's our goal to make sure that we're preparing that next person for, the journey as we go along.
wow. Well, that was actually a really good answer that could have been mixed up with my next question, which is basically my last question. But we're going to ask it anyway because I have some specifics in this question that I just want to make sure that everyone knows that this is for everyone. So, you've mentored many and impacted countless lives. What advice would you offer young, middle age, and old faith driven professionals entering leadership? Because I have seen every from which way of age,
Mhm.
you know, come within themselves and say, I want to begin to start to walk in this leadership role. So, what would you say to all of them? That would be great, whether you're 18,
Sure.
25, 35, 45, 55, or 80.
Yeah, sure. So I think it all starts with, prayer, right? So praying to God to make sure that what you think is in your heart is aligned with his goals for you, right? The worst thing you can do, because God gives us gifts. If you're a Christian, first of all, we all get spiritual gifts, but even the non-Christians have, certain talents and things that have been given. And so it's really understanding and trying to match those, right? And so you can be extremely good at a certain thing. You can have, intelligence on that certain thing, but if God has a different direction for your life, you're not going to be as successful as you could be if you're aligning with his purpose, right? And so the first thing I think is, really understanding that alignment. And the beauty of that is when you get aligned with God and his purpose for your life, then it isn't stressful, right? It isn't hard work because you're actually have a passion to do what you're trying to do, right? And so that alignment, I think, is critical. Um, Understanding that, as the Bible says, in this life, we will have trials and tribulations. And so, as a leader, right, that is guaranteed because, again, you're going to be faced with, multiple things and multiple setbacks and multiple issues and failure, right? And failure is not an issue of, okay, I failed, I need to figure out something else. It's, how do you learn from that? And whether you're 18 or 80, right, how are you learning from, what you're going through, and then how do you apply that to help you on your journey? And so I think some of those principles are the same. I think the other thing, whether it's through technology or, well, I think another critical thing is that none of us accomplish anything by ourselves. Right. So, one of the things I taught my kids a lot is relationships. If you get connected to the right people, then those people can open doors that you could not open if you tried for 100 years, right? And so understanding that I don't care if you're the founder of something or whatever, it's really about relationships. And as you develop those relationships, the integrity, right, that you exhibit through those relationships is critical because you can create a relationship, but it's that integrity that's going to maintain that relationship. And so when people see that your heart is really, aligned to the purpose and what you're trying to do is really not just about you, but about trying to solve issues or help our community, then they will help you. And so, those are the critical things, I think, regardless of your age, making sure you're aligned, with God's purpose for your life. Obviously, you need to be equipped. Don't think you're going to be a CEO of a foundation if you know nothing about accounting or nothing about investments and nothing about people. Whatever you're aligned with, and if that's your passion, then make sure you get the education you need, whatever that education path is, to do what you're doing well. And then, develop those relationships and have integrity through the process.
Amen. Amen. And well said for everyone, whether you're 18, 25, 34, 55, or 80. We are now getting ready to wrap up. Before we do, there is one last moment I include, and this will be in all of our episodes, something I call the divine drop. It's not a question that I have sent in advance. It's meant to spark a genuine moment of reflection, something straight from the heart, as I feel like that my guests are going to be doing from the old interview, but and inspired by purpose. So here's your divine drop. When people speak of your leadership years from now, what do you hope they say you did differently?
Uh, I mean, it's a great question. I think the differently piece is interesting. For me, you know, one of the scriptures that I always go back to is from Ecclesiastes, where it says, there's nothing new under the sun. It's a quote from Solomon, right? Which really says that, yes, we all live in different times, just technology and things change, but really the principles of what we do, remain the same. I think back, or I think for me, as if people were going to look back and say, what did he do or what did he do, maybe differently. Again, I'm not too sure about the differently piece, but uh, to me, it really goes back to that servant leader, right? As you mentioned, I've received awards and this, that, and the other from a lot of different things over the years. Sometimes I'm accepting those on behalf of the organization, so it's just not me doing those things. But for me, it's not so much about that. how did he serve our people? Did he have a passion, for our people, regardless of whether things got done or didn't get done? Sometimes that's not in our control. But for me, it's really about that servant leader piece. Did he exhibit, through his work, sacrifice, and through his life sacrifice? Did he try to serve our people? Did he, really try to put our people and our collective benefit, right, at the forefront, more so than, his own career progress or anything of that nature? I did not start out to be the CEO of Poise Foundation. But to be quite honest, I've always loved being the number two person. But that was a position that, and I believe that was, divinely ordered, just through everything that had happened over the years. But again, it's not to me so much about the CEO. It's really, did he truly try to serve people? Was he looking out for our best interests? And, is that what he exhibited, to our community?
Wow, that was powerful and exactly the kind of wisdom that stays with people. Mark, thank you from the bottom of my heart for your journey, leadership, and living testimony of faith and action. You've shown us what it means to combine excellence, service, and divine purpose. And to everyone listening, may you be inspired to step forward in faith, grounded in God, and guided by purpose. Subscribe to Divine Story Hour, share this episode with someone who needs encouragement, and remember, be confidently covered by God.